Hello, my name is Sierra, and the question that we are going to answer is, should Edward de Vere get credit for William Shakespeare's work? We believe that this is affirmative, that Edward de Vere was the original William Shakespeare. There's many defense points as to how plays were created or came about. De Vere was older, which could be the possibility as to why he was more intelligent than William. Edward de Vere was a very educated man who knew a lot of writing techniques. While William was born into an unremarkable status family, he was not fortunate enough to learn the correct writing skills the way that Edward did. Many of Shakespeare's plots and characters parallel events in the life of Edward de Vere. Are there any questions?
So if de Vere was older, then where did he get his education from?
He was older, he get his education. I don't know, just like from like picking it up along the road.
What is your contention to? What's your second contention?
We just like thought that Edward de Vere was the real author because we're all here to make prints on our life, and he couldn't do what he wanted to do because he had to keep his parents happy, and he wanted to go out and do what he wanted to do, but he had to please his parents. So,
Okay. That's all.
Okay, hello and welcome to today's debate. We are discussing whether or not Edward de Vere should be allowed to take credit for the plays attributed to William Shakespeare. My name is Jacob and this is my partner Gage. We stand in strong negation of today's debate's topic. We believe that the 154 sonnets and the 37 plays and 2 poems should all be accredited to the real William Shakespeare, and here are our main contentions. The first one is that records confirm Shakespeare had a literary life. One of the things we've encountered in our research is that there's no way a commoner from Stratford would be able to write such intelligent and eloquent poems. However, we know based on parish record that William Shakespeare was indeed born in Stratford in the year 1564, and we know that there was a Stratford free school in the town, and it's very likely that he attended. Some records even hint that he attended, and the school is heavy on languages such as Greek and Latin, which appear in some of the sonnets and poems. And this shows that Shakespeare was able to have a literary advantage over many other people that could have been given credit for the poems. And it shows that he was indeed smart enough to be able to write them and educated enough. Further down the road, records show that the Globe, a London theater, include William Shakespeare's name as a part shareholder. And we want to know if Edward de Vere was writing under a code name, why would he also use that code name to own a shareholder as part of the Globe? And this gives us insight to the fact that Shakespeare had literacy involved throughout his life, acting in a Globe theater and going to school at this grammar school in Stratford and all these other things. And based on all this, it can be assumed that Shakespeare had more than enough literary capacity to write his own sonnets, plays, and poems. Our second contention is that Edward de Vere died too early to complete the later plays. Edward died in 1604, and there are roughly 12 new plays ascribed to Shakespeare's name afterwards. And they were composed and acted in the Globe afterwards. These also come from parish records and bbcamerica.com. There were still 2 plays after his death and about 11 to 13 sonnets after his death. That's what I meant. But there were 12 plays that were ascribed to his name that were written afterwards. Too many authors around Shakespeare's time give him credit for it to be a simple coincidence. And Shakespeare's name is on most of the sonnets and all of the plays, and his signature and other authors of the time mention his name many times and mention his social status. According to De Vere Authorship Argument on De Vere Authorship Argument at absoluteshakespeare.com, one author said, to the memory of my beloved, the author Mr. William Shakespeare, what he hath left us. This was author Ben Jensen of the time. And another author that supports Shakespeare is Hugh Holland, who wrote Upon the Lines and Life of the Famous Scenic Poet Master William Shakespeare, and to the memory of the deceased author Master William Shakespeare by Leonard Digges. So we have all these authors around the same time mentioning Shakespeare as this great poet, and they never once mentioned De Vere, and so we're going to use that. And Ben Jensen and Hugh Holland, the first few quotes I read, they wrote their quotes in 1623. That's only a few years after Shakespeare had died, and they commended him. They would have commended De Vere, but there was no reason to. Or they wanted to have commended De Vere if he was using a code name, but at this time there was no reason to because he was already dead. So they decided to commend the real author, which was William Shakespeare. And these are our 3 contentions. Oh, we're open for questions.
Where did you find the proof of the school records when you went to school?
So these are all on parish records, and you can find those on bbcamerica.com.
Can you please restate your second contention?
Yeah. The second contention is that Edward de Vere died too early to complete the later plays.
But if there was still plays coming out when William passed away, how was he not able to get credit? How did it ever?
So we know that at least 2 of the plays were written after his death, or it can be assumed. The dates are rough, but it's strongly likely that they were written after his death, and 11 to 13 were performed after his death. So it's more likely that Shakespeare had the 2 sitting by waiting to be acted than De Vere having 11 to 13 sitting by after his death waiting to be acted.
Okay. No further questions. Hello, I'm Aleah, and I was just coming to defend what Sierra said. In the research that we did, it says that Edward de Vere was older than William Shakespeare. He was to be 14 years older and was born in 1550. In the research that we did, it says Edward de Vere, which is to be more intelligent than William. It said that
Sorry, guys.
Okay, I don't know, but he had to go to school of law before, and before that he was writing poems. But his parents didn't want him to be a poet, they wanted him to go to law to be a lawyer or something like that. I'm not open for questions.
Okay. We want to ask, why would DeVere's parents not want him to write plays and instead want him to go to law school?
Because they wanted him to be like them and like in the business of law. So they told him that he had to go to law school.
Okay. Is that the only reason?
I guess.
That's the only question.
So, hello, welcome to the debate. I'm here to give some counter arguments of why Edward de Vere did not write the plays. The first one, it was supposedly frowned upon for noblemen to write literature. But what about King James or Queen Elizabeth? They wrote and published literature under their own names, and even Edward de Vere had separate writings published under his own name. So why would he use his code name, supposedly, William Shakespeare, only for certain sonnet plays and poems? He wouldn't. Since none of our arguments have really been attacked, we have some other information hitting the scene, and it is that Edward de Vere's family crest is aligned with the spear, so maybe he got that from, I'll use that as my name, Shakespeare, but this could be tossed right out the window because it holds no meaning, considering William's family crest was a rooster shaking a spear. And for the second one, de Vere owned his own copy of the Geneva Bible, and there are passages used in sonnets from there, so you'd think, maybe he would have highlighted that or something. But no, he annotated it, but there was never anything that came up annotated within the Bible in Edward de Vere's copy. And just to resound our case a little more, there were just too many authors around the time period that gave Shakespeare credit. He couldn't have, nobody even questioned that Shakespeare wrote the plays during the time. So, thank you. Questions?
What does there's something on the spear mean?
That was just to show that family crests really don't matter throughout throughout why De Vere would have used his undercover name.
Okay. If you were doing something your parents didn't agree with, would you come up with a code name for it as well? Or would you just let it be out there and let them be mad at you?
I feel like once you're an adult, why would you hide under a code name? But he even published writings under his own name at times, so I don't know why he would.
All the time.
Yeah, I don't know why he wouldn't just write the stuff under his own name either. So clearly Shakespeare wrote his own plays and sonnets because Edward de Vere wrote his own stuff and even published it under his own name.
My fellow classmates, we obviously did not have a lot of facts to support our case. You go ahead and you believe what you want. Edward is declared the real author of William Shakespeare's plays and poems due to the lack of education Shakespeare obtained. So thank you for sitting through our not well prepared debate between us four, and it's now up to you to decide which group to side with.
Time.
Okay, so I want to just point out the fact that our argument stands strong because we have facts and we have evidence, such as the websites I listed off earlier. We have various quotes from other authors crediting Shakespeare with his plays. We've pointed out that the family crests that could be used to describe why De Vere would come up with the name Shakespeare is redundant due to the fact that William's crest is just another animal shaking a spear. We know that Edward de Vere has other writings that were written under his name. It's how we know that he existed in the first place and that he was involved in the literary life. And so it doesn't make sense that he would only write certain plays and sonnets under the codename of William Shakespeare. Therefore, Shakespeare had to have been a separate person. And some of the things the records also show that have not been addressed, that I just want to bring to light again, is that Edward de Vere and William Shakespeare were both mentioned under the papers of the Globe Theater. why would they list that as two separate names if the same person came in one time saying he's Edward de Vere, the next time saying he's Shakespeare? It had to have been two separate people. And so our main argument is, again, Shakespeare was a real person. We have evidence showing that he wrote his plays, and that it wouldn't make sense for de Vere to have written the plays. For these reasons, we're urging you guys to vote in negation of today's debate, and we hope that the evidence sways you in that direction.
Like Sierra said, we don't have very much evidence compared to theirs about William Shakespeare, but we do have a lot more research. So if you guys do your own research, you can learn that Edward de Vere should be credited for William Shakespeare's work.
So, while the opponents want you to do the research, we did the research.
We did the research.
And came up with pretty clearly that Shakespeare wrote his own plays. I mean, we even researched like for them, for de Vere, came up with why he couldn't have. And I think we had a pretty strong case today. Thank you all for coming. It was a great debate today. I hope you vote in the case for Shakespeare writing his own plays. Thank you all.
Let's shake hands.